Okay, welcome everyone. I'm Catherine Hopkins, Marketing Director for CXC Global North America. And I'm pleased to welcome Javier Romeu today for an interview. Javier is our Global Solutions Manager for North America. And he has a very extensive and colorful career. So just a little bit about Javier. As I mentioned, he's quite a seasoned solution-oriented executive with a range of diverse expertise and global experience, directing account management, operations, sales, global deployment, consultative business strategy, and business development for Fortune 500 companies around the globe. So he's got quite extensive international experience. Javier's experience in international employment outsourcing through EOR, GEO, IPEO solutions follows an extensive career in the technology sector. So we're just going to start off. Javier, thanks for being here today and agreeing to do this interview. I'd like to start by asking you, how did you get into the employment outsourcing industry?
Hi, Kate. Thank you very much. That was a nice introduction. I think it's too nice for me, but when I worked most of my career, as you well said, in the technology field, particularly in cellular world, both in the infrastructure and handset side. About 10 years ago, I formed my own company to do business development in Latin America for companies that wanted to go in different countries in Latin America, but they were not quite ready to go, or they were not sure how to go about it. One of the companies that I offer my services to was actually looking for somebody to do business development for them in the US to bring business to Latin America, and this was in employment outsourcing. So I started working for them, and then that turned out into a full-time job that I worked for 6 years with them, and I learned a lot about it. And the interesting thing about all this is that when I started looking at employment outsourcing, I never thought of that as a solution for all my previous problems. When I opened subsidiaries all over the place, hired people in different countries, was going crazy trying to understand what the employer's costs were, what taxes we had to pay, the vacations, the benefits, the different things.
Right, because it's so different in different countries.
Yeah, so it would, to me, it was like opening my eyes, and I really dove into it because it was a lot of fun. So I really enjoyed the new angle of looking at things in a different way, and being able to offer that to other clients that were looking at the possibility of growing overseas. Because let's face it, most U.S. companies do grow overseas.
Right. And so it's always interesting actually knowing how someone first got into a particular industry. We say employment outsourcing, but it's also known as employer of record.
Correct.
So yeah, so what would you recall, like when you first started in the employer of record market, what do you recall the most from that?
Well, the first thing was that it really needs, you need to work with somebody that really understands the local, not only the employment laws, but also the local culture. It's very important to work at, the famous saying always says, act globally and work locally. Well, the work locally part is a lot harder to do because you don't know what you're doing for the most part, and particularly for companies in the U.S. who, to no fault of their own, they usually think that whatever it's done in the U.S. can be done anywhere in the world, and that's not always the case. I was fortunate enough to not only work, I'm a native of Argentina, and I lived in Latin America, but I also worked in France for 3 years when I was working for a technology company. And it was really life changed for me because I was in the local payroll. So all of a sudden, going from 2 weeks vacation in the U.S. to having 6 weeks of vacation was crazy because I had to figure out how do I take vacation. There's too much, but I learned very quickly.
Right. So that's what you recalled the most, the increase in the holiday pay. Or the holidays, the amount of holidays.
Yes, it was very interesting, a difference too.
Yeah, I mean, and since that time, like it's changed a lot. Would you have thought back then that it would be, the employer of record industry would evolve like it has?
At first, I thought it was a total niche. It was something like, oh, well, yeah, there are a few customers who will want to do that, but because they all want to have uh, their own place or their own subsidiary, their own control, their own uh, entities. And as I got into it, I realized that uh, people were not controlling it because they had basically three options to work in there. One of them was uh, as setting up a local distributor or a local partner whom they had to immediately trust because they were in charge of whatever their product was and their marketing strategy and their customer contact and working with the customers. Secondly, the other option they could use is what I always call the parachute approach, which we did for years, which was you would go once a month, jump in your parachute, actually in an airplane, and go try to do business and uh, forge relationships with local clients or local people that you could work with to try to get the business going. Unfortunately, that takes a lot of money and a lot of time because people in a lot of countries don't immediately trust you just for meeting once or twice. You need to meet for a long time in order to do that. And the third one was forming a subsidiary, which is expensive and furthermore is going into the unknown. So when the employer of record solution came about, it was like all these lights started going up. Wow, I wish I could do that. That sounded amazing, and it made it easy for me to sell it from my previous experience when I talked to U.S. customers.
Interesting. Okay. So um, I guess one of the things that really has impacted the growth of the employer record business, certainly globally, would be globalization. Making the world has become much smaller in that sense. So from your extensive global experience in workforce management, what would you say the impact of globalization in relation to collaboration with teams?
Well, when I look at globalization, to me, particularly when I look at it from a U.S. standpoint, it was all of a sudden opening all this different market, all these different opportunities to be able to sell the same product that we had done before for the U.S. market. So it opened up all these opportunities to make more money or to make more sales. But we also had to make sure that whatever the product that we were bringing to market actually met the local needs and the local requirements from the particular client. So it was good for us to work on that. So in order to do that, we were not experts. We had to work with local people. And first, as I said, we tried to engage them as distributors or try to engage them as contractors. And then we found out that contractors is not necessarily the right way to do it, or more better said, the compliant way, because there was taxes and benefits and things you had to worry about. So the first thing you do is you go talk to a lawyer and try to set up your own subsidiary. And then when you get the price tag for doing that, you go, no way, I can't do that. So when I looked at all that, I decided, this is great. I can work with customers. I can open new opportunities in here. So to me, at first I thought it was a niche product, but then all of a sudden said all these people can do it. All these people that are looking at doing HR outsourcing, which was their original thought, can go way beyond that because they still have control of what they want, which is the workers and the market approach. But at the same time, they didn't have to go crazy learning something new for one or two people or five people in a different country. So it was fascinating.
So globalization has really opened up the ability for companies to engage talent around the world. But using an HR outsourcing company means that people can conduct business without actually having an entity in that country. So I guess
that's right.
Right. Yeah. So then in terms of remote working, hybrid workforce, total workforce, how can companies prepare for the future of work, do you think?
Well, total workforce is the right word because a lot of companies are looking at this as a different way. We have people that are employed by our in our headquarters where that we pay them. Then we have remote workers that may be a contractor or an actual employee. Then we have contingent workers that we only work for different projects. And then we have independent contractors that do specific things. I remember when we started working in Colombia, I had an independent contractor had great contacts with the government, so we were able to work with them to write different laws, to accept different products, to offer telephony, fixed telephony through cellular infrastructure work. So you have to hire the independent contractor to do that because they know how to work the internal things. So all those things became a new way of doing business, a new way of going about how to do things. And when I translated that to being able to outsource the HR, outsource the employment, it was like, okay, great, let's do this. So it's easy to talk to people about that when you've experienced it, when you've seen it, when you wish you would have, and then later you did. But so those are things that I think are important to talk about and helps when you talk to the clients.
So yeah, so I guess with the future of work, leadership, I mean, the structure of the workforce has changed so much with the hybrid models in place, and leadership now has to kind of adapt to that as well, so that they're kind of future ready. So yeah, how was your experience about, like, with all your traveling that you've done around the world? How would you say that that's helped you better serve your clients and team?
Well, I think the first thing is that as soon as you start traveling in different places, and I talk to a lot of my colleagues and people that I network with, you realize that the global world is a lot different than what you're used to. It starts breaking stereotypes. You start thinking of some stereotypes that you go, oh, the people from this country do this, and that's the only way they work. And then you go there and you realize, no, that's not the only way. There's few people that are that way. So it opens up all that new horizon, new ways of looking at things. And I think that's something that is very important to look at, and then being able to put that back to other people so they can learn as well as they look at expanding. And let's face it, through globalization, most companies are beginning to sell, or not beginning, but they're selling their products not just to the domestic market, but everywhere they can. And of course, you reach economies of scale faster, profits, which is what most companies look for. And it's, it's a great place to look at.
Yeah. And so, yeah, so just on that, with all your travel and experience and everything, what's your favorite country? I have to ask that.
Oh, this is very difficult because, as I said, I'm from Argentina. I love all the countries in Latin America, and living in Europe, in France, I traveled extensively in there. But if I were to look at which country do I want to be in, if I had only one to go, I would have to flip a coin between Spain, France, or Italy. Part of it is probably my ancestry.
Yeah.
But the other thing is that no matter where you go in there, there's always something new to learn, and they have so much history, and it's amazing.
Yeah.
And
I happen, yeah,
and I happen to be able to communicate in those languages.
Coffee.
Yeah, and a lot with my hands.
Yeah.
But
yeah.
I don't have to revert to English, and that's something that helps when you try to speak their local language.
Yeah, and I think having those languages as well for you have 3 languages, that would help a lot with your global business dealing.
Yeah, and a couple of them are Romance languages, which make it easier with all the other ones.
Okay.
Like, for example, if you speak Spanish and Portuguese, you can probably manage Italian. France is a little bit different because it's more Gaelic.
Yeah.
But when I see things written in Romanian, I actually understand it, because Romanian is actually a Romance language.
Yeah, language is very interesting, and the correlations between them. I agree. So if you had your time again, what would you do differently?
Ooh, that's a tough question.
What would you? Yeah.
I mean, I don't like to look back and say I would have, should have, would have. I'm not that type of person. I always try to look forward to what I've done, but there are mistakes sometimes. What, for example, being from Argentina, you always hear all these things about Brazil. And so my first two times in Brazil, I was a little bit skeptical because I felt that maybe they would view me in a different way and all that. But once you get to know them, they're just people. They're just like anybody else.
Mm.
And that's the same thing. When I was in France, if we go to the UK, there's always this rivalry that you sense. Uh, but the reason is because it's a lot of history. So you put the history behind and start looking at the
Right.
customs of each country and really learn. So what it really made me do is go and really learn what each country has and what are the best things they have, and forget the bad things. Look
Yeah.
at, oh, these people are good at this, let's
Yeah.
work on that one.
So maybe having a deeper understanding.
Right. So deeper
Yeah.
understanding is the
Yeah.
key. So
Yeah.
so if I were to do something different, I would have tried to take all the misconceptions that I had up front and just go with a blank slate and try to take them as people, which I eventually did, but not at the beginning.
Okay. Advice.
I guess you learned that with age too.
Well, there you go. A bit wisdom, hopefully, yes. So advice for college students of today, finishing college. It's a very different world for them.
One thing that I think is if you get a chance to, if your school offers a study abroad semester, take it, because that will open your eyes totally. Secondly, if you have a way to learn another language, even if it's at a very basic level, do it, because that will open your ear to be able to learn languages in the future. The third thing is look beyond next door, look beyond what's right there. Just go and make sure that you understand the rest of the world. We think the world is already industrialized in many ways, which it is, but there's a lot of places in the world that still have an opportunity for new technologies, for new things. So it's not over, but think global. Think of the world as a whole, not just as your own individual island.
Good advice. All right.
Hope.
So yes. So how do you unwind?
How do I unwind? Mostly with family. I happen to be very lucky. I have two little granddaughters, and whenever possible, I try to get on the phone or WhatsApp or whatever with them, to talk to them, to see them, share pictures. Of course, my daughter and my son as well, which they don't live at home. And with my wife, we like to in the weekends we like to cook and just sit around the pool. And happen to living in Florida, we get pool all year long.
Yeah.
And so relax and invite friends over and just enjoy that. So
good. And you're a bit of a wine connoisseur, aren't you?
When you live in France and travel through Spain and Italy, you have to be a wine connoisseur, and then go back home to Argentina or go to Chile, and they say, hey, by the way, we have really good wines too. And by the way, all the vines that are in Europe had to come through here before they went back. So you start learning of the history. And I always say that a good wine is what you like. Doesn't matter if it's $1,000 a bottle or $2 a bottle, but if you like it, it's wonderful. And I like to taste it. I like to taste it with food and not just drinking wine. So I enjoy it. Like I've been to Australia and New Zealand, but only for business trips. Right, really quickly, and I found fantastic wines in there. I mean, I love the New Zealand Cabernet. No, Sauvignon Blanc.
Yes,
from Marlborough, which is fantastic. There's some fantastic wines in Australia, of course, all the wines from Europe, and and even California has good wines.
Yes, they do. They even did a movie about it. Well, I guess that's a topic for another conversation, but we'll finish off. And here's your chance to do a shameless plug for CXC.
Shameless plug for CXC. Well, I've been in this industry for 10 years, and one of the things that really struck me from the beginning is the transparency that CXC has. we never have hidden fees. What you see is what you get. If an employer's costs are X percent, we say the employer's costs are X percent. We don't inflate it. We don't come up with, oh, there's an onboarding fee, there's an offboarding fee, there is a phantom banking fee that you have to put in there. Um, we of course we have to
Yeah.
make profit. You know,
Right.
CXC has to make profit. So, but we tell this is our management fee,
Yeah.
and we clearly state that. So I think that's one of the things I like. The other thing is
No hidden surprises. Yeah.
no hidden surprise. And the other thing is um, they try to be. I mean, it's a business like all businesses, but they try to treat you as human beings, as family. You know, in many ways it reminds me of my grandmother, who was very family oriented, but she was tough. When she
Mm.
wanted things done, she wanted things done the right way. She didn't say, "Oh, do it because you're my grandson, and let you off the hook."
Yeah.
It was it
Yeah.
was no, this is the way we do it. And my grandfather would always say that if you didn't do it right the first time, well, you had 10 more times to do it right. And he made you actually repeat things to do them until you do them exactly the way they were supposed to be done. Maybe nowadays that doesn't work anymore, but but it's something that was engraved for me.
Yeah. So we're family, but we've got a job to do at the same time.
Exactly. So that's the important part.
Yeah, I think that's great. All right. Well, Javier, that's what we've got time for today. We've reached the end. So thank you so much for your time and for this interview. Very much appreciate it.
Thanks, Catherine. Appreciate it.
Okay. Bye bye.